morning, all y'all. So, I thought I'd start off with a funny Ohio story. So on Thursday, it was so hot in the house that we had to 79 degrees, and we had to turn on the air conditioning for the first time this year on Thursday. And then on Friday, we didn't need the air conditioning because it had cooled down. And then Saturday, we had to turn the heat on because it dropped down to the 40s last night. Um, and I think of that because I remember back at the first of the month on Easter, the first of last month, Reverend Kim, he in his sermon, he talked about spring is finally here. And then 2 days later, we had snow. So I'll just say that it looks like the weather is warming up for good, but don't make me look bad. So this is Ohio. So today I wanted to talk about what we offer to God. And before you all leave, I'm not talking about tithing. Although, if you were uneasy when I said that, then perhaps God is trying to tell you something. But what I want to talk about instead is what God wants from our person, ourself. So when I was younger, this is actually something that worried me. I tried to have a relationship with God several times as a teenager and in college. I read Hundoke, and I prayed. I didn't party or do drugs. I avoided girls. I tried to make conditions like fasting and taking cold showers. But at the same time, I also stayed in my room and I played video games for hours. I put in a minimal amount of effort in studying. Never did more than I had to. I watched porn. I lied to my parents about how much I studied and how strong my spiritual life was. I had all these secrets holding me back in my life. And several times I would reach this point where I would pray and I would have a breakdown and I would just cry and feel so sorry for the person that I was being to God. And each time, I would always resolve to be a better person and grow closer to God. And each time, God told me, hey, you need to be honest about who you're being to your parents. And this was something that scared me. I was so afraid of my parents' reaction. And so for the longest time, I just said, okay, well, I won't do that, but I'll do everything else. You know, I'll read the divine principle, I'll pray, I'll do pledge on Anchio, I'll do all the other parts. But you know, I thought that in order to make God happy, that I would have to be unhappy and miserable. That I would have to spend all my time reading Hundoke and witnessing, and that I'd have to open myself up to persecution. You know, I'd heard so many stories from what my parents went through. That I'd have to give up video games, and that I'd have to give up my gay and liberal friends. So instead, I avoided God, and I kept trying to have a relationship with God, but every time it got hard, I gave up. You know, I liked a comfortable life without anyone judging me. I liked having fun. I never had an experience in my life where I gave up everything for God like my parents did. But to have a relationship with God is to have a commitment. And it's not just committing to do hundoke or to go witnessing and be a tribal messiah, but it's about how you live your life. So this following passage is from the Gospel of Mark, but it's in all three of the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. This is taken from chapter 12, verses 13 to 17. Later, they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we?" But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. "Why are you trying to trap me?" he asked. "Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." They brought the coin, and he asked them, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then Jesus said to them, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God's what is God's." And they were amazed at him. Now, some people read that passage and say that it's about the lawfulness of secular authority, and that believers have a responsibility to follow the laws where they live as long as they are in accordance with God's. Some others say that's missing the point, because what does Jesus do? He asks for a Roman coin and then asks, "Whose image is this? In whose image is this coin made?" Roman coins are made in the image of Rome. They are stamped with symbols and inscriptions of Roman power, and they have the face of the emperor on them. Rome made the coins specifically for economic purposes, to pay their soldiers, to facilitate trade, and especially to tax their subjects. So Jesus says it's okay to pay taxes because that's just using Roman coins for their purpose of creation. Now, what else does the Bible talk about being made in an image? Humans, right? So in the book of Genesis, God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. If it's okay to pay taxes to Rome with coins made in the image of Rome for the purpose of taxation, by the same logic, God's tax is ourselves. It's us. We have our own purpose of creation. By saying that coins made in Rome, in the image of Rome, for taxation should be given back as taxes to God, Jesus is also saying that humans made by God in the image of God should also fulfill their own purpose of creation. And here's the thing, I struggled finding a relationship with God because I only saw God as taking, demanding, telling me to do things I didn't want to do. But what does God want from us? Actually, that's the wrong way to say that. What does God want for us? God wants us to fulfill our purpose of creation, to bring our mind and body in oneness with his heart, and to give and receive true, unconditional love. And it's not just in one part of our life, like the part where we go to church on Sunday, or the part that reads hundoke in the morning, but it's also the part that goes to work, the part that cooks food, the part that plays video games. God wants our life to be about love. And speaking about mind-body unity, I've been trying to read with the help of a dictionary the divine principle in Korean this past month. And I think there's some lost meaning in English. So I found two words that are used for mind. One is maum, and then the other is shim, like in bonshim for original mind. So maum means mind, but it can also mean will, thoughts, consciousness, sympathy, compassion, heart, intention, soul, or essence. Korean is not as precise and specific as English. We have one word for one thing. Likewise, shim means mind, but it can also mean heart, core, or center. And it actually uses directly the Chinese character for heart, which can also mean the same things. So in English, mind has more to do with your thoughts, your intellect, your psychology, but the Korean is more than just uniting your thoughts with your body. It's your essence, it's your intention, your soul, your heart, your mind, who you are. And that's what God wants. God wants who you are. God wants who you are to give and receive love. God wants your intention to be someone who gives and receives love. Is who you are being today someone who is able to give and receive love? What about who you will be tomorrow? God's providence is more than just following his orders. It's about how we share his love, how we share her love with humankind. What are our intentions? What are my intentions? Sometimes I avoid talking to my dad because we see the world in different ways, and I worry about the conflict that can arise from that. This past month, I wrote a series of Facebook responses to a video my dad shared, and I spent a lot of time disagreeing with him. And my dad's not like really Facebook savvy, so he didn't respond to any of them on Facebook. And I actually found out later that he didn't know that I posted any of them until like a week and a half later. But the point is, I didn't call him for 2 weeks because I was just worried about this potential conflict we might have. But I realized, and I realized this multiple times. I'm still learning this lesson. But I realized just last week that what's more important, expressing my love to my dad by calling him, or avoiding that potential argument. I cannot read the Cheonseonggyeong and then be inspired about what True Father says about true love and God's heart for mankind, and then turn around and not practice that in one of my most basic and fundamental relationships. Amen. I can, but that would mean I'm being a hypocrite, and that's not who I want to be. Our actions and practices, our body, have to align with our intentions and our heart, our mind. Otherwise, what's the point? There's a lot of news about 2020 in our movement right now, but if we are working to fulfill the goals set out by Mother only out of a sense of duty and obligation to Mother, then how do we win people's hearts with only duty and obligation? How do we do it without love? actions with intentions. How do they match? And not just with 2020, but with our work, with our friends, our children, our parents, our spouses. God wants our whole lives, not just whatever part we may dedicate to fulfilling the providence, or getting into a university, or having a God-centered family, or becoming financially independent, but everything. So, what is your intention? Who do you want to be? When you die, how do you want people to remember you? How are your actions fulfilling that? Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parents, thank you for this Sunday morning when we can gather together. Especially this is the first Sunday of the month, and I see lots of people who are here, not from around Columbus, but also Cleveland and West Virginia, and just people who have traveled a long way to be here. Thank you for bringing them here. And I pray that we can fellowship together and that this week we can continue to learn and practice what it means to give and receive your true, absolute standard of love. I report these things in the names of everyone represented here. Aju.